Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend Jim Stam. He has figured out his equipment situation when his wife is traveling for the very first time.
Yeah. Listen, dude, speaking of that, wife's out of town. Parents are in town. Ben's got makeup games galore from all that rain we had. Dude, I'm just looking forward to sitting down and talking some baseball with you. I'm doing baseball a lot, but it's 7-year-old baseball. So this is my respite. This is my time for us to just chat.
Well, there are some years where that would have been comparable to what you're watching on the Pirates, when the Pirates are playing. So
yes,
fortunately, I agree with Ben Cherington. We are better than last year, and you're not watching 7-year-olds play on the field right now. So we'll get into those comments a little bit later. That's a topic we definitely want to hit on.
Definitely.
Wanted to start with some breaking news. All right. First, Pirates signed a guy. I'm not going to pretend I know him. Let's just see him. Numbers look passable.
I'm not going to pretend I can pronounce his last name unless it's as basic as I think it is.
I'm just going to call him B guy until I hear Greg Brown pronounce it. And then I'll start saying it like I've always known what it should have been. But
JB.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of big league history. I just don't know much about him. A lefty. Pirates have been really good with lefties. I didn't know who the hell Brian Borucki was last year either. So I'm not going to pretend this year that I know that they've picked up a guy that's worth anything or not. I will say, he was released from a minor league deal with the Reds. Probably had a release date at June, 1st, I would imagine, like a lot of those types do.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pirates signed him to a major league contract. So be it. We'll see. Like I said, I looked at it. It wasn't horrible. Never know what you're going to get out of these guys. And that's really all it is trying to get something out of these guys. I think the major thing that I take away from that signing is, man, what did Jose Hernandez do? What do they not like about this guy? Because, dude, the numbers haven't been bad up here. Patently they're not. They're running guys out there that are doing a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
And they've needed a lefty badly. I'm not sure I understand the handling of him at all, but I'm also not going to complain about bringing in another arm. I think they needed another lefty option they trust.
Yeah, the Hernandez thing's weird. Sat there for seemingly forever, not being used. Then when they could have used him, they didn't. So, yeah. I guess right now, fresh arm is good, and we'll see how he does. That's all. Like you said, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about the guy. But lefty, it's funny. I think we thought the lefty situation on the bullpen was kind of taken care of at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And here it is, June, and it's actually been a bit of a hole. So just
it's
another
funny.
Unplanned thing that we didn't think of.
It's funny because the Pirates will sign a guy like this, and fans will rightly jump online and start jumping up and down. Who's this guy? What's dumpster diving again? And meanwhile, they've just watched their team beat up on the Dodgers, who threw Yohan Ramirez and Anthony Banda at them in this series.
Right.
So every team does it. Bullpens they're built in an ideal way, knowing they're never, ever, ever going to get to the finish line looking that ideal way.
Yep.
So you build a ton of options in, you do a bunch of stuff like that, and yeah.
Especially these lefties, right? These lefty bullpen guys, you're going to see them recycled. They're like poorly playing defensemen in the NHL. God, they just keep getting recycled around the league, do they not? So,
sure. I mean, you even got like somebody like, Borucki last year. I don't think they necessarily planned on him making it. The reason they got this guy is because he still has a major league option left, so there's still some mobility there. They're not stuck with him forever if he doesn't work out. They can move him to the minors and work with him a little bit more, which, hey, Oscar Marin's pretty good with, lefties. So
Well, and as it turns out right now with the Priester news, the maneuverability stuff does matter, right? They're going to have to do something here, Gary, with Priester. It was at a lat? Was that what it was that he apparently has suffered an injury with? So they're going to have to do something with this fifth spot, are they not?
Yeah, that's the next thing we got to talk about. Quinn Priester goes down with that lat strain, and I know it's possible they caught it really early and everything, but those things tend to take a minute, especially the rehab from them more than almost anything. So I think we're going to see what happens with Quinn as far as how long it takes to get him back. The immediate concern is who starts on Saturday. I guess we'll find out here in about an hour if the Pirates pull Braxton Ashcraft out of his scheduled start in Altoona. That would be a potentially logical spot start type guy. He's already on the 40. He can already throw, the velocity. I think he would probably come up here and be able to give you 5 innings if everything went right.
I really like the idea, Gary. I think it's a perfect time for that. Like, you get him that spot start. He gets a little taste. You hopefully don't have to tax a bullpen to do it, that he comes up and looks halfway decent. I just really like the timing of that. I'm hoping that's the way they go with it, truthfully.
For all I know, though, and for all you know, obviously, he's already gone through his daily warm-ups and everything for today, and they just decide, hey, let's not do that to this kid. He is recovering from Tommy John, so let's maybe not push all the chips in with him right now. I'm just saying, when you put a guy like that on the 40-man, you put him on the 40-man not only not to lose him, but you plan on potentially using him.
Right.
Here's an opportunity where, hey, it's pretty close to lining up. We could make this work potentially. That's an option. Okay. I'm just saying that's an option. Another option is to go with the bullpen game. I think we know we haven't liked that. I think it hurts the team. If they do something like that, I'd almost like to see them maybe send down a Kyle Nicholas for Josh Fleming. Go ahead and burn him again. Put him back on the 40, even if you're just going to cast him right back off, and let him start, give you 3 innings or so, and go to Ortiz to, take the next bulk. And hopefully you get through it with no problem, because this is really a 1-week problem, most likely. Martin Perez should be off the IL by the 12th.
Yeah. And, when I look at just how it's all shaking out here, if I remember correctly, Fleming did this and gave them a good 2 and some odd innings, or close to 3, when he did that spot start. Didn't look bad doing it either.
He's been a spot starter before with Tampa, and he's been a length guy with Tampa. He's more than accustomed to the situation. It's just, I don't know if that's the route you go or not. We should probably take a break and come back and talk about all the options, because we've got people suggesting Germán in here, and I kind of want to address a couple of those as well. So
yeah,
let's take a pause for the cause and be right back.
Sure.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We were just picking up about what we were going to do with Quinn Priester going down there and trying to potentially get through that little gap week to hopefully get back to a healthy Martin Perez. I'm assuming he's healthy after that 15-day IL trip, because it seemed like they caught the groin early. So I just assume he'll probably be ready at that time. I could be wrong.
Hey, might not hurt for his arm either, right?
Yeah, I think he probably needed a little bit of a break, I would say.
Groins are funny, as we all know, if you've ever pulled.
It's certainly funny to say.
Pulled, yanked, strained, whatever you want to call it. You got to be careful with him, especially, he's not 20 anymore. So, but I
Right.
think I haven't heard anything that hopefully he is back. So,
All right. So John here asked earlier, as for Saturday, will it be Germán? I don't think so. He hasn't performed well in AAA so far, and Ben Cherington just said this week that, and I quote this, Germán has a long way to go. So
it's too soon, Gary. To me it is, but
I think there's more work to be done there. Plus, as we were just talking about too, Martin Perez is going to come back here pretty soon. I think that would be their plan as well. Once you put Germán on the 40-man, he got to be on your roster. He's gone. So, that's got to be a pretty permanent decision. I think like you'd be looking at a Germán like if, let's say, Bailey Falter were to get hurt. I'm not even going to speak the other ones into existence, but let's say something like that were to take place and it's long term. Like you're talking like 2 months or something, or one of them gets a lat strain, something along those lines. That sort of thing, I think, yeah, you might be looking at a more permanent solution like Germán, somebody that's handled being in a rotation before. If they've gotten him to a certain point, it's not going to replace, any of those guys.
No, and like you said, really all you're trying to do right now is buy a little time. And I think there's some options there where they wouldn't have to do that. So I understand why people bring it up. I just don't see that as being the choice.
Josh from Bridge to Bucktober thinks Gorski should start on the mound Saturday.
Well, he is prone to strikeouts, so maybe it translates.
Yes. Maybe he knows all about how to make that happen from the other perspective too. Yeah. I think the easiest solution is probably what they'll do. They're carrying an extra bullpen arm right now. So even to, just make a change, they'd have to make a change. Obviously, somebody would have to go down to bring up a starter. No big deal there. But it seems to me the extra bullpen arm is just going to get used like as such. I wouldn't even be shocked to see them go ahead and burn this brand new lefty out right away.
Could very well do that.
Yeah. So who knows what's going to happen there? In fact, that might even have prompted the signing, for all I know.
Yeah, because this could have been they might have known about Quinn 2 days ago. You know what I mean? So who knows?
Right.
Fly on the wall stuff.
That's all fresh news. I'm not sure if we can 100% put our thumb down on that. And knowing the Pirates, we'll know like Saturday around 12 what they're going to do or something. Right. I already got tickets, so I'll be there one way or another. I'm either going to be like rooting for, a 4-hour game that they change pitchers every inning, or, luck to just take place. But
yeah, it's a little different. You go to a Skeens and Jones or Keller or Falter start, you're actually feeling pretty decent. You go to one of those games, you never know what's going to happen. It could be, 7-0 in the second, but oh well.
We were just talking about Braxton Ashcraft and how surprising a move that would be. That would be interesting. It really would. But Henry Davis coming back up was kind of a shock too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that we felt like that they had enough time with him yet down there. Derek Shelton seemed to feel like they did push all the buttons, though. He really did. He made a point to say that he not only did all the boxes that they wanted checked, he took it in stride and he was completely ready and comfortable. And as evidence, he threw him right back in. Look, he's getting 2 out of 3 starts against the Dodgers right away. So it's not like they're babying him back into the lineup. Had a hit, in his first outing. That was good to see. The swing, definitely different. He was laying the bat down on his shoulder. He's, he wasn't holding the bat down on his shoulder anymore. He had lifted it up above his head. Clearly wasn't working for him. Went back to everything that he used to do in the minors almost immediately, and everything's clicking all of a sudden. So we'll see how it plays up here. You did a little poll about it, though.
Yeah, I did, because, to me, and I think you as well, as you mentioned, I was just a little surprised. I thought they were going to give him a little more time down there. And because this is such a, Henry is so important, I just wanted to kind of gauge the temperature in the room and see what people thought about it. So really, I tried to keep it as simple as possible, Gary. I said, hey, Pirates are calling Henry Davis back up. Is this the right decision? And over 400 votes, I got to tell you, maybe people are realizing that Henry's important, and they were a little nervous about it, because normally I think when we do these, everyone's like, call this guy up, call him up,
Sure.
bring him back,
They tend to be like that a little bit more when they haven't seen them in the first place. Like when they just think like they're going to call up this phenom and he's going to light the world on fire because they haven't seen it happen in the majors yet.
Yeah,
it's a lot louder than
right.
It is after they've gotten that first sample.
Right. And then you, on top of that, put that Henry's a number one pick, and if he's damaged goods, that's devastating to them long term. In this under Cherington. So, yeah, 61% said yes, you have to do it. But the interesting thing about it is if you combine the other two options, no, it's too soon, or I'm just not sure, which means people have trepidation there, right? Like, I don't know. That was almost 40% of the responses. So to me, that tells me people were like, oh boy, as much as we need him.
You can see Pirate Queen here says she was shocked how soon Henry was returned.
Mm-hmm.
I know you and I talked about it last week. We straight up said, like, you got to be really careful with him. The next time you call him up, you don't want it to be, you don't want it to feel like it could go back. You want it to be like more permanent. You want him to feel like this is the last time he's getting called up. It's time to stick now, right?
Right.
So I think we both felt caution probably the victor here. You can get by with Grant Cook for a couple of weeks if you have to. Only playing once a week. If you can do that with Grandal, which might be the bigger problem, you might not be able to play Grandal as often as they felt like they needed to.
Right. You've already seen that. There was that marathon game, and then Grandal was right back in there the next day because of, so that can't last very long. You can't do that very often. But I will say, I'll get to just a few of the comments. Speaking of Grant Cook, they said Sherrod Learn said, if I'm pronouncing his name right, if delay isn't ready, I'm okay with it. You can't go any further with Cook. Now, the only thing I would take issue with that is, Gary, and I've mentioned this before, is like, to me, those are two totally separate issues. They are not making any judgment on Henry based on the fact that Grant Cook sucks or can't play. Like, they're separate issues, right? You have to make sure that Henry has to you just have to be confident Henry's ready. It can't be because Grant can't hit.
I would think that it might have something to do with the fact that Grant couldn't catch either. Like,
he didn't look
like they talked about, how comfortable Paul Skeens was throwing to him and everything. I think Paul's a nice guy. I'm just going to say that. I didn't see a comfortable pitcher catcher battery there in that game. I felt like he didn't necessarily know where that splinker was going. And I think he cost Paul quite a few calls, to be honest with you. That 100 mile per hour is kind of difficult anyway. We've already heard like the umpires have a hard time seeing it.
Yeah.
So, you're maybe not going to get as many of those borderline calls. You need a catcher that is much more experienced at making it look confident, right?
Right.
I don't think we saw that with Grant at all. And I'm not saying this to disparage the kid. He made the league. Hey, good for you, dude, for real. But I don't know, man. At the plate, it looked downright scary. Like, I don't even know how he's in AAA.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't pretty. I will say, interestingly, the only question I would have is if delay was ready, would they have done it? Now, their answer should be yes, because if you think Henry's fine and ready, then it doesn't matter, right? If it's delay. If
Actually,
delay is ready.
Joe Granlund here, he brings up a great point because I heard a little bit about this too. Do you think Grandal being there as an example mentor might be why they were comfortable bringing up Henry? Yes, I do. Because Grandal does a lot of the game planning even when he's not starting. So I do believe that they're comfortable having Henry execute his game plan. You know, that he starts to lay out for attacking the pitchers. I think we even saw in the game that Henry started with Jared Jones, I saw Grandal take him aside in the dugout and kind of like talk to him about a couple things and come out, and they made quite an adjustment with Jones that next inning.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't see that.
I do think we're seeing little things like that playing out. And I basically think what it is, you know, the mind is willing, but the body is not able with Grandal. You know, I think his knowledge base does play a role here, and you can pass it on to Henry and have him try to execute a lot more of that stuff. Getting that inning by inning shepherding, that could really, really be important to Henry overall.
And I think too with Henry is, look, this is how I'm approaching right now. And maybe the Pirates are looking at this too. They don't need Henry to come up and have, you know, an 870 OPS right out of the gate and just smashing the baseball. He just can't fall flat on his face like he did. Like even if the numbers aren't there, but he's putting together good at bats and you can see there's a progression, I think they'll be fine with that. They just, you know, they just can't afford the whole I can't hit a fastball stage that he was in.
Yeah, I actually read something today. I think the first thing he did before he reported to AAA was he went to Louisville and got up with and got with his old coaches there and everything, and like just hit fastballs on the highest machine until he felt right. And then went to AAA and started doing it right away. Douglas Smith comes at us here with, I think it's Amshore. Henry had an aggressive approach to AAA like he does to everything. We'll see how that pans out. I know where Doug's going here. And right away in that first game with Henry, you saw the emotions when he struck out right away. I was kind of hoping they were going to try to give him some kind of Zen method to kind of get himself to chill a little bit, because I do think we have on our hands here a classic try hard. Okay. He's a try hard with a ton of talent, but he tries so hard sometimes, I think he mutes his own talent. I think he actually gets in his own way sometimes, trying so hard. You know, like sometimes in baseball, the best thing to do is let the game come to you. And guys like that just can't do it. Douglas Smith suggests CBD therapy. I'd have to agree with that.
I think, you know, and look, Yark brings up a good point. He said, I'd have given him another week, but I don't have 5 coaches and high-speed cameras and access to him, so maybe they think he's okay. And Gary, that's really what it comes down to, right, is they've got everything they can at their disposal to see if they think he's fine and ready and okay to bring back up. And that's the thing. We don't have access to that information. So I think that's just it. They feel he's ready. They feel he's ready. And at the end of the day, there does come a point where you are going to have to stop. You got to just kick him out of the nest and see if he's eventually going to fly too, right?
It's at some point you have to find out, okay, is it major league talent or not? You know, can you get past your problems or not? There's certain things like that I do think that we're going to have to kind of deal with. And Joe Greenland says there's no chill in Henry Davis. The only hope for him is to get perspective. Yeah. Or just succeed, because, and I'm not comparing these players. Please don't accuse me of that.
I'm getting my pen out so I can hold you to this, whatever it's going to be.
Bryce Harper was a hothead too. and he carried it into the field too. And then when he started like actually delivering on some of his promise, all of a sudden all that hothead stuff kind of went away because he was just succeeding so often it kind of didn't matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, it turns into the guy's just a competitor, and he wills himself, right? That narrative changes from he's what's the word I'm looking for? Press. It goes from I'm pressing and struggling because of it to I'm competing and I'm successful because of it, and that's the dichotomy there.
It is, and I mean, you never know how that's going to turn out. I personally think that the Zen in baseball usually has a little bit better luck, but the really aggressive, high strung players, man, they can be the most exciting parts of a team. It's just like I think O'Neal Cruz is really hard on himself. You know, he gives himself hell after he takes a bad at bat, and you watch him carry it into other at bats. And then when you see him make the kind of contact he knows he can make, he loosens up. If he does it early, he's going to have a game. If he doesn't, he's going to have a game. It's very weird watching guys, the way that they develop mentally. We talk about mentality on this show a lot. We've had a lot of guests on that talk to that. That's why we focus on it so much, because it's such a part of the game that you just can't know. There's no numbers for it.
It's really interesting just from the fact that you start going through the guys on the team or baseball in general, but like to me, even keel would be the best way to go about it. You're talking 162 games. You're talking 30 games of a month where it looks like you can't hit a baseball. Kutch handles that really well, I think.
Yeah.
Brian Reynolds, maybe people think to his detriment, doesn't have any. He's so flatline. But to me, I don't know. I think guys like that tend to have a little bit long-term stayability in the game. But man, if you're just up and down and hard on yourself, and then to me, that's a tough way to make a living in this sport.
It is. So we'll see how it plays out. I think he's a guy that needs to be put in really good situations early on. Really try. You almost have to try to coax a good start out of him if you can. You know what I mean by that? Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying avoid putting him up against like a tough righty or whatever, but maybe don't shoot for it. Like,
yeah.
Try to give him like the best setup he possibly can have. Every lefty he should face. You want to give him the best possible scenario.
Yeah, just be a little careful about when you're giving him that off day, maybe, and who they might face that day or whatever. This is a guy that hit 2 home runs off Ohtani, so it's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
let's talk a little bit about this series, because we don't usually do like recaps of games and everything, but there was some pretty cool stuff that happened in this series so far. First, I think the Pirates have played really good baseball against a really good team. It's easy to play really good baseball when you have really good starting pitching.
Absolutely.
What more can you say about Jared Jones and Paul Skeens? I'm more impressed by Jared Jones struggling, and I'm using air quotes for those of you listening. I'm more impressed by him struggling than I was when he was just electric at the beginning. He's crazy. Like, he doesn't have something, and he finds a way to make it work for him. Maybe that slider's not working well enough that he can bust it in, so he'll backdoor you. Like, it's crazy the way that he's able to manipulate what he has. And I noticed like right away with Henry was calling a lot more change-ups with him, and he was really getting some good swing and miss on that change-up. What an amazing story it is to have that kid. I'm not saying he came out of nowhere. We expected to get some contribution out of him this year, but you don't expect that out of a rookie. You just don't. And to get it out of 2.
Well, yeah, you never thought you'd be attaching the word phenom to Jared Jones. Like it, no matter how high you were on him in the minors, you never saw that kind of adjective with him. Yeah, I would agree with Josh. Jones is a pitcher. He's not just bringing heat. And I think that that's true. And I will say that I was a little relieved the other day to see him. He had a little bit more of that. Maybe it was the matchup, maybe whatever, but he had a little bit more of that velocity, that movement, that swagger. He looked like he was in control that day. So to me, that was good to see because I thought maybe his last 4 starts, that he wasn't really at the top of his game, but he was back in a big way in that first one.
This game, I think what impressed me most is, and you were there, so I was watching it on TV. So when you're watching it on TV, you can kind of get to see the shape of the pitches a little bit better than you do like when you're at the game. So watching it, what really impressed me is all of his fastballs were like leaking arm side. And I mean like crazy leaking arm side. He had no control of it at all.
Right.
I mean, it was just diving into right-handers. So he and Davis start using it as a weapon. It's basically like, hey, that's what it's doing today. I guess I have a new pitch.
Yeah.
So he's throwing these like what look like wicked 2-seamers in, like, and nobody can touch it. And he's pairing it with this changeup that nobody could have possibly scouted because he's thrown it 5% of the time.
Yep.
And it's incredible.
Yeah, and that's just learning how to pitch, right? Like that's what's fun to me about watching the Jones and Skeen side of things and then the Keller side of things, because it's like Keller is somebody who's been around long enough. He's healthy still, and now he's hitting that where he knows how to pitch, right? He knows how to pitch and he has the stuff. But Jones and Skeens are guys that are still learning how to pitch. They have the stuff, but they're learning. And so these are all the steps that you want to see from young guys like Jones and Skeens. I will say, Gary, that game the other night, yeah, I was at it when the Pirates won 1-0. One of the best baseball games I've been to in a long time. That was a really enjoyable game. It felt like two teams that were really, really it felt a little bit like a playoff game. It had that vibe to it. Just hits were at a premium. Pitchers were pitching really well. Bullpen came in and did their job. When things are going well, that's what it should look like for the Pirates.
I think what's incredible about the Dodgers that a lot of people don't think about is a team like that. Well, you should if you're a Penguins fan, because if you're a Penguins fan, you felt this before. Everywhere you go, you're getting their A game. You really are. You're getting an amped up crowd. You're getting amped up teams. You're getting like everybody that wants to strike out Shohei Ohtani. You're getting everybody that wants to strike out Mookie Betts. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And the difference is the Pirates actually have the tools to do it with that starting rotation. That was what was incredible about it to me. We really are in a situation right now where you should never enter a series with this starting rotation that you don't think your team can win. There is no lineup in which that is not the case. That's something that you have no choice but to build on.
I agree. I think, you look at any type of series you get into, a 3-game or a 4-game, this rotation gives you a chance really in any series. In any series, you do have a chance.
Like Douglas Smith says here, Dodgers had one player with an OPS under 750. We had 2 over. And what is the great equalizer? That's starting pitching.
Yep.
Because that starting pitching makes all those numbers not matter.
Or matter less for sure, but yeah.
Yep, matter less. So I don't know, man. Like, we're going to get into Ben Cherington's comments, but that's why my first inclination was to just kind of take him at face value. They probably are better. despite that record.
It's
I
funny.
mean,
Those comments did get people riled up, though.
They
did.
really did, man. Let's take another break, as a matter of fact, and just get right into it.
Sounds good.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Hey, little diatribe about the Call Your Shot segment on the show.
Uh-oh.
I think there's some misunderstanding about what we're looking for from you every week. All we really want is for you to send us in tweet form or Facebook or email or any of the billions of ways that you can get a hold of us. You can even stalk me on LinkedIn if you want to. Send me a message basically saying, I want you guys to talk about this, or here's a question I'd like answered. That's it. That's all you got to do. That's Call Your Shot. We don't need you to record a video. You can if you want. We don't need you to send us an article. You can if you want.
Yeah.
But
anything that you think is interesting or that you had a question about, as long as there's some thought behind it, that's all we're looking for. And there are plenty of things that we get some good questions. Don't be afraid to send something out there. No one's gonna bite your head off, and hey, we might not use that one. Don't be afraid to do it. And you get something out of it, Gary.
Yeah.
Tell them what you get.
Send it in, get your discount to Yins. It's not like you have to use it if you don't want to.
Right. Right. Maybe you just want the question answered.
Yep. Pass it off to a family member that wants Yin's gear. Have at it. But just get in your Call Your Shots. I'm going to ask for them next week. Let's have a better response than we've had. We've only gotten a few trickle in here and there. Very repetitive things that we're kind of going to talk about anyway. Be creative. Get us talking about silly things. We'll do it. All right. Ben Cherington's comments. Let's just read them verbatim, right?
Okay.
The simplest thing. We think we're better than we were at this point last year, whatever the standings said. And that's the first part of his statement. I think that's where most people stopped listening, but I'm going to go ahead and continue. We think we're a better, deeper team. We think we can continue to get better over the course of 2024. We look at the team and what's working well and areas where we need to get better at. That's a good breaking point for right now. What did you think of this, Jim? Because I listened to this on the fan. I was actually running out to the grocery store. I heard it. I didn't think much of it. In fact, I tried to put on my, what are fans going to say hat, like I usually do when I hear things like that. I didn't think anything of it. Went to the grocery store, made dinner, went on social media a little bit later on. It's exploded. I mean, it's like people ticked off. Jason Mackey even wrote like a borderline hate piece about it. Man, I didn't take it that way. What did you think when you read it? Like, maybe I was like being just ignorant to it, but I kind of agreed with everything he said. That's exactly what I think's happening this year.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, me personally, there are times when Cherington says something or the Pirates say something, and I do call BS on it because I do think some of it's BS. I did not, in this case, take it so literally to the extent of I interpreted it as, and this is the biggest issue I have with this in general, is if people want to compare these 60-some games they've played up until this point to the full season of last year and the 162 games, I think that to me is kind of apples and oranges. Like, I think if you let what Cherington is saying in this case is, if you let this play out this year with what we have, we think we are going to see those things improve and that we have that in place to do that. So that's how I was taking it. Was that the wrong way to take it, Gary? I don't think so.
I don't think there's a wrong way to take it. It's just like, I literally thought this was innocuous. And it was just happen chance that like I just wasn't looking at social media right away. And then I was kind of bombarded with it. And I almost couldn't believe it. I went back and read it again because I was like, I got to go back and read what he actually said now. Maybe when I read it, I'll understand why people were so mad. Because, listening to it, maybe I was only like half listening. I said, I went and read it. And I couldn't get there. I was trying to make myself mad. How like when I write, I try to write like from both perspectives. Like if I was irritated, this is why. If not, here's why. I couldn't find anything. So, and I started thinking to myself, well, is it true? Are we a better team this year? I mean, the records certainly no. I feel like they have less holes this year than they did last year. I know there are some that are still rather gaping, but first base, for instance, Rowdy Tellez has sucked, but Connor Joe's played really well. So, like, first base isn't a gaping hole. It's just something I'd like to patch with something better. Outfield isn't a gaping hole. Like Edward Olivares has done pretty well. Connor Joe can play out there a little bit. Brian Reynolds is Brian Reynolds. But, Taylor has stunk. So Jack Sawinski stunk. So it's certainly not great. They need somebody. But I don't know that I would go like, oh, it's like this derelict of duty gaping hole they left.
For me is like when I look at the pitching staff, I think this is for better or worse, their mindset is with these four guys pitching the way they are over these next 100 games, that you're going to feel pretty good about your chances of being in most series and having a chance to win some of those, and be very competitive in those series. That's how I was looking at it. That's how I look at this season right now, is that part is established, that they can get any stability in the bullpen. And we have seen a little bit of it, right? Bednar has been back. Holderman continues to do what he's doing. They've gotten a little bit of a chance to use that Holderman, Chapman, Bednar thing here recently, and it's shown promise. So to me, I just look at it as if he's making this comment with 3 games left in the season and their records no better than it was last year or worse, then I get it. I think we've got to let this play out a little bit.
I also think we need to allow ourselves to grow as the season grows. Okay. Like at the very beginning of the season, I think it's fair to say most of us felt the rotation was light. We felt like they were not going to be good enough. We kind of thought Paul Skeens will get up here because he has to, not because like it just works itself out or they actually have room. We thought, well, it's gonna happen because they're gonna suck so bad they have to call on him, right?
Yeah, he was just he was gonna have to get here to help.
Right. So obviously, as the season's evolved, well, the rotations become a strength. The bullpen looked like it was set up. Had some injuries. They've had some underperformances. Hasn't done well. It's a work in progress. I actually think they've started to come around the last week or so here. You're starting to see a lot more of that Holderman, Chapman, Bednar finishing line that we were hoping that they would start to kind of standardize a bit.
Right.
So there are some things improving there. The hitting went through a really, really bad stretch. But I still see people talking like it's right now currently awful. They've been hitting really well for like weeks now.
Yeah, there was only one way to go, but yes, they've played much better on that side of things than I think people are giving them credit for too.
Yeah, they have problems, I think, and this is maybe why. Their biggest problem, they can't put out a competitive lineup against right-handed pitching. And it's because guys that have to play that you don't really want to play because they aren't performing have to play. You need Rowdy Tellez, Jack Sawinski, Brian Reynolds, and O'Neill Cruz to do what left-handers that mash are supposed to do against right-handers.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they do, the offense is always going to look pedestrian at best. When they face a lefty, like people thought I was Kreskin yesterday because I said they were going to beat the hell out of Paxton, right?
Hey, I'm going to give you some props.
Well, they beat the hell out of Paxton, right? Well, it's an educated guess. They mash lefties. And Paxton is not a high velocity lefty, and he throws everything right in the Pirates' hot zones. So I thought they might destroy him. They did. I could say that about most lefties they face. Scooble was a special case because Scooble is just on another level.
Oh,
but
yeah.
like Aaron Nola on another level. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
But like lefties in general are going to struggle against the Pirates. They need left-handed hitting. That's what has to happen.
And that's really like whenever you look down, the rest of this way, like how do they get to where they want to get to? Really some of it, Gary, comes down to O'Neill Cruz is going to need to hit. Brian Reynolds is going to need to be Brian Reynolds for his career numbers, and he's starting to show a little bit of signs, I think. But those guys have to perform for them. They really have to. They've got to get consistent stretches from Brian Reynolds and O'Neill Cruz and Brian Hayes. Like, that is where they're going to make some headway.
Shout out to my website. Go to Steel City Pirates and read Josh Booth's latest trend line piece about Brian Reynolds and why he may or may not get hot in June. He did a whole piece about that today. It was pretty interesting. Jack Sawinski, though, to me, is probably the key figure. O'Neill Cruz is probably the principal player here. If O'Neill Cruz starts going, the entire offense will look better.
It will change things.
Yeah, and it's really just from even the left side. Like, only against right-handed pitching. I don't care if he ever figures out facing lefties this year. If he just hits against right-handers, this entire lineup looks better.
Yep.
Overall. The offense itself, though, I guess I don't want to keep talking about it like it's the same problem it was during that really bad stretch, because it isn't. It's not the same as it was. They are giving run support for the most part to these starters. With these starters and the way the offense has been playing, the bullpen starting to form itself a little bit. I think you're looking at them probably going into a good stretch here where they start making Ben Cherington's comments look pretty smart.
Well, and that's the key, Gary, to me is when we were going to talk about just in general some things with this team today. I think what the Pirates need to do is they just need that, like record-wise, they're treading water a little bit. They can never string together more than a couple games, right? Like, it seems like you get 2 wins and then you get a loss or 2 losses, and then so if they could just get that 10-day stretch where they play some really good baseball and you get your head back above water record-wise, then I think you've given yourself a really good kind of injection to get them back to where they want to be. And then what do we got? 7 teams within a game of each other for a wild card spot.
Well, that's why I keep focusing on the lefty hitting, because they're getting the pitching. 4 out of 5 games anyway, they're getting the pitching. And that's been really consistent. 4 out of 5 games, they're getting that start.
Right.
The problem is when you're facing right-handed pitching and you're not hitting them, you're not taking advantage of those starts because you're just not putting any runs on.
And you can't string anything together.
It's impossible to string anything together. You have to be able to do a little something. at least against the lower level right-handed starters of the league. I mean, not everybody's going to get everybody. You know, like you've got to face guys like Skeens and Jones from other teams. So like,
Yeah.
it's like Freddie Peralta is going to come up. You're going to have to face him. You're going to have to take on Sonny Gray. You know, there's tough pitchers too, but you have to be able to do something against right-handed pitchers. That's all.
Right.
That's where they're pathetic. That's like a very specific thing that they can fix. And I think we as fans need to stop being married to that having to be a first baseman. It just needs to be a left-handed hitter at this point. It's that desperate a situation. I don't care where they play.
Yeah.
You have to find a place for them.
I think, and that's going to be the interesting thing too, is like, to me, this next month especially, is where are they going to lean if they are going to look for anything, right? Like what do you eventually settle on that is too important not to get some help? And I think these next 30 games, this next month, is really going to show them. I agree with you at the first base side. Like, to me, that is down on my list now of things that I would like to see them do.
It might work out better for the team if it is a left-handed first baseman and you can just play Connor Joe in the outfield. And I think Connor Joe is gonna at some point show you why he really shouldn't be playing more than 4 games a week or so. Right now he's playing great. That's fine. I'm cool if he does it all year at first base. But I think you're going to probably have a little bit of a dip from him, and it's probably going to come from him having to face every difficult right-hander too. Like, you really do need to have some kind of another option for him. You know, there are some guys, the people that throw sweepers at him, he'll struggle with. You know what I mean? So I think you'd want to have some kind of a lefty over there to be able to take advantage of it. That's why Rowdy Tellez still gets chances. We just talked about this. Like that one game in Toronto, people make a joke about like, oh, that bought him another week. It didn't. But like the swings that he's been making around that are why they keep giving him a shot. Plus, they have to have some kind of a lefty contribution, and they're not getting it from anyone. In fact, I would tell you right now, if Jack and O'Neill and Brian Reynolds were all ripping it up left-handed, I absolutely 100% believe that Rowdy Tellez would already be gone.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
They just need somebody to hit.
Yeah, I don't know if they cannot. That to me is just it. Get yourself a lefty bat that someone fears in the lineup, and if that's somebody they already have that just has to hit better, fine. But they can't go the rest of the way without being able to make any righties pay. They just cannot.
I mean, you've got teams that I bet they're probably starting to wonder why they're worried about O'Neill Cruz at all. You know, like they're making changes to the lefty because it's more automatic that you're going to get him out. But he's not exactly raking against righties either. So you could see them maybe pull back on making changes like that in games. And maybe you don't get that sort of advantage that you normally do get, which is getting a lefty in so that your righties can hit again.
Right.
you know?
Yeah. He's just he looked better there for a couple weeks, and then he went right back into that same funk he had been in. So yeah.
And they've got a couple players that they probably need to move on from, and I think it, in a weird way, it kind of is going to work out for them because I think they're veterans for the most part. Like Michael A. Taylor is a guy that I don't think is going to make it very much longer on this team.
Well, they've really cut back on him, haven't they?
They had to, and he's on the paternity leave, which I'd imagine he'll come back from. But I wanted him signed. I really did. I think the defense is still good. I just think it's not so crazy good that I feel it warrants necessarily a roster spot on this team. You know, I've noticed they're trying to have him bunt more, and play the small ball role. Um,
Yeah,
you got to have guys on base for that to work.
it's so
But,
situational, right? But
right.
I I think it's going to come down to with like, to me it was a little surprising Jack got called back up, but I think that had something to do with um, the paternity situation. But it, boy, it would be really good to see him have a nice little stretch here. I don't know how much longer he's going to get, but
I think he's probably good because Piguero will be the move when Taylor comes back because they don't need him.
right.
In fact, they're not even playing him. I mean, like, he's going to be up here for this whole 3-game series. I don't think he's going to see the field unless he gets a pinch running situation late or a pinch hit.
But it's funny with Jack, though, that boy, they didn't really let him do much down there, did they?
I don't think there was much to do.
Yeah.
I think all they did with him and Henry is have them both revert to their previous swings and kind of get shepherded through it. That's all. I mean, people are going to give Munson credit, that's fine. But I think people need to remember that our dear leader, Andy Haynes, give him the plan before he sends him down.
Yep.
So, yeah, I still want the guy fired. I still think they need better hands-on coaching up here. Like, for me, I'd promote Munson to the majors because, if nothing else, I think he's shown that he is capable of implementing whatever changes they try to put on these guys and have it take hold. That's something that I don't think we see at the major league level. For instance, they've watched Jack struggle for 2 months, and you're telling me that 2 weeks down in the minors is all he needed to get his
right.
swing back? You're telling me all Henry needed was to go down for about 3 weeks and have his swing back? I mean, like, I don't know. Shouldn't some of that be being tried in the majors? Like, before we're making roster moves with guys? I'm just wondering about that aspect of it. I have for years now. So
I agree with you. This is, to me, like, they've got some really crucial games coming up. They all are at this point, even at this stretch. But it's the Twins. The Cardinals have played better of late. They've still got the Rays in there. That, Gary, they just need to make a little bit of a move in the standings. They can't keep treading water like they're doing. So that to me is the thing, is like, geez, let's get our head above water and then see where we're at.
Yeah, I think I love the starting pitching setup. I know the 5th spot is scary right now. I do think Perez will come back and solidify it again. That Priester injury could get scary, though, because he's really the reserve. If I'm them, I might get Ashcraft up to AAA one way or another, just so that maybe he's a little bit closer.
Yeah, on the ready a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he's done so good at Altoona. I don't know that I'd mess with him there either. But he's a guy that I think they're going to ultimately have to call on one way or another. So, especially if Priester's injured for a long time. If that's a 3-month injury, he's pretty much the safety net starter right now.
All right.
And Marco Gonzalez just got moved to the 60-day to make room, so he's out for a decent amount of time. Baraki was just added to the 60, so that's going to be a longer term thing now too.
Maybe Ortiz would come into play a little bit there.
Man, Ortiz has done so good where he's at, and I feel the urgency too. And I keep hearing people suggest it, but oh man, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know that I'd want to mess with him right now. He seems to really be embracing it, doesn't he? And he's throwing better, and he just looks more comfortable. I almost just don't want to do it.
I wouldn't want to do it. But I can see where the thought process comes in, obviously, with if the Priester thing turns into anything more than a short stint. So
Matt Helmer says Burroughs is getting close. It's spelled kind of like the donkey, brother. But no, he's not. 3 weeks ago was the last time we had an update on Burroughs. and it was, I quote, "We should be having him start to have throwing sessions soon." That was 3 weeks ago. Haven't heard anything since. Maybe we will. But even when you do, a guy coming back from Tommy John, supposed to just get started with a throwing program, ain't close, my friend. That's a long way off. Let's see. What else do we have here? Douglas Smith thinks that Shelty can't take over Andy's job, but he's probably tempted to most days. I mean, we know that Shelton said that he stepped in last week with Tellez a little bit, so that's good if that worked. And it's bad if it worked in a way, right? Because why doesn't he step in more often? The point is that they really need to do is get some better hands-on coaching that has time to be hands-on with these guys, especially when they fall into disrepair. When you have guys that get their swing disjointed, you shouldn't need Michael McHenry doing side-by-sides of their swing to compare what's going on with them. You should be able to do that as a coaching staff and help them make those changes in the batting cage. That's why you have all that technology up here.
Right.
They've got stuff up here that they don't have in the minors. They can face any pitcher in the league they want. Anytime they want. So you should, in theory, be able to do the best work, the best of your craft here. You know, I think they need somebody that's dedicated to doing that. That's all. They seem resistant to it. But these guys clearly need help. And when they get sent out, they all go and seek a third party before they report to camp.
They seem to. And that's on both sides of things, right?
Yeah. So I don't know, man. There's definitely some things that need to happen there. But I'm feeling the Pirates like kind of poised to start doing some damage right now. Rotation really is starting to cruise. You've got Paul Skeens, I think, looking like he's really gotten comfortable and stretched out a little bit. I don't feel like that was the case in his first few starts. You know, I know he had that stretch in Chicago where he just blew everybody away, but we also kind of watched him struggle with trying to almost go pitch to contact after that the next game. And did he maybe push it a little too far in the game before? And now 5 or 6 seems pretty routine. You don't see yourself asking that same question every time he's out. Like, or how long are they going to let him go? It's more about 100 pitches. He's like a normal guy.
Yep. I do. Like, I look at both Jones and Skeens, and I think every start you see from them, they are learning something new about themselves, and we get to learn something new as we watch them. And that's what's fun about watching young pitchers with that kind of talent, because they are still figuring it out. They just happen to be good enough to get by, even if they're not 100% on top of their game. So,
yeah,
they
give you a chance to win. They give you a chance to win.
They do, and this is an important month to get that rotation the way it is. Henry Davis is back up. String together a few wins. Can we do that?
We should be able to. And I will say this too. Stop looking at the schedule and telling me it's tough. Major League Baseball is tough. I know they're tough.
And what's not important anymore?
But when you have this rotation, though, like we said earlier, everybody you see on your schedule is not somebody that you shouldn't be able, in theory, to beat. You've got the rotation to do that sort of thing now.
Yep.
So I don't think that I'm going to sit there and look at anybody and worry about it. And when they play the better competition, tell me they don't play better. They play way better against like Atlanta and the Dodgers than they do against and Milwaukee even, because you can tell they have a healthy respect for them. But like when they start playing like the other teams, like the A's and you know, like the Rockies and whatnot, you can see that they don't play the same way.
It's funny.
Again, though, these pitchers, that's your difference in that scenario too, because they shouldn't change their approach and usually don't. So when you play those lesser lights, you should win more games. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they're set up to do exactly what they said they were going to do this year, compete for a wild card. That's what I see.
And
Until I see otherwise, that's what I'm going to stick with.
everybody else in the division is bunched up. The Brewers, I'm still not quite sure how they're doing it. 10 games over 500, Gary. I still think we're going to see them come back to the pack too. I really do.
I mean, Josh says he's guilty of thinking about a tough schedule. It's not that you don't. Like, it's just, I'm saying I don't look at any of them anymore and go, oh man, I bet they could only win about 3 out of that 12, because I'm not now just going, okay, when does Oviedo pitch? When does Keller pitch? I got a chance in those couple games.
Right.
Instead, I'm going, okay, 4 out of every 5 games, I've got a great shot. And you figure I'm going to get lucky on one of those fifths every once in a while and get a shot. And I think you just kind of, you realize, like, the majority of the time your team should be in it. Should be. And if not, it's on the coaching, because they've got the tools now. They really do.
And what do I always say is, really all you're trying to do is win 6 out of every 10. If you can start doing 6 out of every 10 for a long enough period of time, you've put yourself in a good position. 6 out of 10.
Good stuff,
6 and 4. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, that won't be good enough for Buck and Mike, unfortunately, I'm sure. But
yeah, he'll get over it. We've seen much worse.
Yeah. Hey, good show, man.
Yeah,
it was a good one. And next week, I think we'll have a little bit more to digest. We'll understand a little better what's going to go on with this rotation. I think that's Martin Perez being healthy is probably going to be pretty darn important. So let's hope that we get some news on that we can share next week.
And let's hope that Henry looks better, even if the results aren't there. Let's not be too result oriented. As long as he's putting together good at bats.
Yeah, we want swings and connections, not swings and bat slams. Right.
That's right.
Right. I don't want to hear less audible F words out of Henry this week.
Looks like he's having an aneurysm at 23 years old.
Unless he's saying it because he just caught 104 from Aroldis Chapman, I don't want to hear it. Right?
Exactly.
Hey, great stuff, everybody, and thanks for joining. Have a good time. Let's get that sweep tonight, huh?
Let's go Bucks!
Yeah, buddy. All right, see you, everybody.